Alright, I'm continuing this series about, this is not how to say certain words, but this is more like your experiences with learning Japanese, stuff related to Japanese language acquisition. So there was an interesting question from Aiden Morrison. He or she said, I'd love to hear more about what your daily study routine was as you learned the language. How did you divide up your time? So I wanted to talk a little bit about when I first came to Japan, and that is the time that I felt most frantic and pressured to learn Japanese because I really couldn't function without speaking Japanese. Like there was a very limited amount of things I could do. And I felt helpless, and that helpless feeling, I wanted to turn that into power. I wanted to empower myself. And so I was very motivated to study, and I just had like a fire under my belly, so to speak. And what I did was I lived with my Japanese girlfriend, and she would work all day from like 8 in the morning, and she would come home at like 9 p.m. at night. So I'd be by myself the whole day, and we'd both get up together, and after she left, it would be like 8 o'clock. And from 8 a.m. to noon, I would study kanji from a kanji book. And I'll leave the link to that book that I use. It's a very famous book. And I just studied these kanji like by writing them over and over again and remembering the kunyomi and the onyomi. Like, if you study kanji, that Japanese kanji have basically two readings. One is the onyomi, which is I think it's that's the Chinese reading, and then the kunyomi. So I just like studied those for about 4 hours. I do that till noon, and then I'd get tired, and then I'd have lunch, and then I usually go to the park and chill out. And then I had a friend in the neighborhood. She was a married woman. Her name was Ayano, and I would meet up with her after she got off work around 5 or sometimes 3, I think, and we would go to a cafe, and she would bring her English book, like, because she couldn't barely speak English. So, like, when I was teaching her English, I would say, can you please say this in Japanese? And she would say, like, I was teaching her basic English things like, I'm reading a book, and then she would say it in Japanese, so I would learn how to say the same thing in Japanese, which is really helpful. And I'd probably hang out with her for about 2 hours. And then, other than that, that was like my formal study time. So 4 hours in the morning and about 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 to 3 times a week. And then beyond that, I wasn't really on a schedule. It was more like I just picked up things as I had experiences. Like going to the supermarket, out on the streets when people would say hello to me, or if I got lost. It was just like learning from experience. So I did that, and then a few months, probably a month into my stay, my first time here in Japan, I started going to a language school, which I think was 4 hours a day. And I did that, and the teacher just ran us through drills, new verbs, how to do basic things like make the verbs into the mas form. Like if you have the verb aruku, which means to walk, that's the infinitive, or the basic form is aruku. That's the word you'll find in the dictionary. And then if you want to make that into the polite form, it's arukimasu. Okay, so we just learned these basic things like that. And then when I was going to that language school, I was the only American in the class, I think. All the others were Chinese, Korean, and a couple of guys from Turkey. And we all spoke to each other in Japanese, or we tried to speak to each other in Japanese, and that was real fun. Because when you're at that low sucky ass level, Japanese don't really want to talk to you. I mean, they'll try, and women are really nice. Women will try to talk to you, because I just find in general that women are more patient, whereas guys is like if you can't talk to them, they're just like, fuck you, they don't want to talk to you. But I find that women are nice. Like, well, when I was in my 20s, like, young Japanese girls in their 20s were interested in me, and I was interested in them. But also like older women, like grandmas and stuff, like they're just like lonely and they want to talk to you, so that's a good opportunity to talk and expand your skills as well. Anyways, this is just a little bit about how I study Japanese and my routine of studying Japanese when I first came to Japan.